Hello there. Good to see you on the Down the Donut Hole podcast. And for today, we've been putting this off. At least I've been putting it off for a while.
Me too.
Digging through the pile of paper on the Nervous News desk.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. It just makes me want to take my arm and just swoop it all right into the bin.
That's
but I
where it
will not do
belongs.
that. I refuse to do that because that's a chicken move to do that. We have to look at it. We do, no matter how nervous or twisted up inside it makes us feel, we do have to look at it. And we have to decide how we govern our response to it, because whether you realize it or not, you have a great deal of personal influence, especially over the people around you. And if you're able to keep your head, think reasonably, speak very confidently, and with a hopeful, reasonable attitude toward the things that you're hearing in the news every day, you'll help other people to do the same, because they will want to follow your example, because it makes you yourself feel better, but at the same time it makes others feel better. And so we hope that by now we're over a month of Down the Donut Hole podcasts, and we hope that you're beginning to see a pattern with us. This is opinions on newsworthy things, on personal issues, on memories of how things used to be, especially in comparison to how they are now. And we're hoping to help people strike a balance so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming when we confront the issues as we go about our lives in this day. And I would like to just say that over the weekend, there were a lot of protests, and those protests had taken on kind of a different character. A lot of the placards were "No Kings" and "Let them eat Teslas." And that was in honor of the fact that it is the 250th anniversary on April 19th of the start of the American Revolution. 250 years.
Wow.
Now, for us, that sounds like a lot, but if you travel around Europe, 250 years is the blink of an eye.
Exactly, yeah.
And so part of, like what we say, part of one of the attitudes that we as a country seem to display is very young. It's very untried. They've been through so much more than we have, and it has a way of tempering the collective unconscious.
Yeah, we're kind of the bratty teenager, really.
We are the bratty teenager. And if we once understand that we're behaving like a bratty teenager and that we would prefer to be taken a little more seriously, or, not just have respect because we can beat everybody up and our pockets are stuffed with money. Now it's time to show prudence and resilience and understanding and openness to listening and all of those kinds of things that come with a mature psyche. And so as a mature person, I think that it sometimes takes a lifetime to understand those things and the value of them. And that's what gives us a role in helping guide our young people, our grandkids, and their kids coming up. So I feel needed.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Do you feel needed?
No, actually. Here and there, I guess.
No, I do, because I think it's important to be able to offer a different perspective, not a young perspective, perhaps, but a hopeful one, and one that encourages people to take personal responsibility for, your own actions. You hear us again and again say that we disapprove of violence. We disapprove of vandalism. We disapprove of anything that smacks of a lack of forethought and consideration and respect, and any kind of behavior that suggests that you are out of control. Because in these times, now we've seen a lot of old statutes that were on the books dusted off and being put to use in terms of deporting people. I mean, under some of these old laws that haven't been used in over a century. Mm-hmm. And so somebody is going through the books, combing them for loopholes, and it won't take too much public violence or out of control behavior that they'll be able to find some statute to declare martial law, and that's going to take a very, very long time to undo. So govern yourselves. If you protest, and that is your right, it is your duty. But remember to keep a lid on it
Yeah, exactly.
and behave respectfully. So, lots of stuff.
Great.
Yeah, the Pope lies in state in the Basilica of St. Peter's. His funeral will be on Saturday. The whole world is waiting to find out who his replacement will be and what his stance will be on a lot of these things that are hot-button issues in the United States, certainly, and worldwide. And certainly, Pope Francis was known for his special love for and consideration of marginalized peoples, immigrants especially. And so, with this being such a big issue today, especially here in the United States, it will be interesting to see if his successor is as bold in speaking out against things that are spiritually troubling.
Yeah, I saw on the news, I think it was last evening or whatever, there's still talking about how some people didn't really approve of him. And I think it's because he was trying to bridge that middle gap a bit.
Yes, and he came out saying that same-sex unions could be blessed. There are a lot of people, very old school people.
It does seem self-serving, though.
In what way?
They've had problems along those lines.
Yes, but is it a problem? You know what I mean? Should it be a problem?
Yeah, I mean, abuse, sure.
Well, you're talking about abuse. I'm just talking about
Oh,
homosexuality.
yeah, they can do what they want if they're adults, but that's not it's not been the problem.
And he did. It took him a long time. He did address it with the bishops. However, he did not go far enough, and he regretted that. Toward the end of his life, he began to see that he had a unique opportunity in that time window to really be very, very clear and establish clear guidelines. And that was the time to do it, because as we can see nowadays, with people being just terribly upset with the way governments are being run, and with a lot of things that people took for granted now being eroded, that turning to a spiritual leadership seems like the place to go for guidance and comfort. And because certainly with the Catholic Church, that whole business tainted their ability to give advice.
Exactly.
And solace. And
I do think he seemed like he was sincere, I think. And he tried, at least, I think.
I think so too. And the enormity of that job. I mean, billions of Catholics. And so, some organized religions have very checkered pasts, and the hierarchy of those religions have sought power. I think you can't paint everything with a broad stroke brush. You have to say, okay, this individual, what was their goal? They're a flawed human being. All of us are. And sometimes when you make a corporate decision, which if you think about it, churches, schools, all organizations come down to some business aspect in terms of the administration of it. And I think sometimes decisions have to be made from an administrative position, which are very guarded. Maybe because there's other aspects of things that the general public, you and I, don't have a clear understanding of. If you come out forcefully with this, what's the next thing? That's my opinion about the abortion issue. I think we have to be so careful with that because it only affects the female population. And if a failed pregnancy now, I saw another case just recently about a young woman who had a miscarriage and then afterwards was charged with abuse of a corpse. And we have to be extremely careful with these regulations. They have to be sensitive because you're dealing with such emotionally charged situations. And I know the Catholic hospitals themselves have had to become much more clear in what their regulations of how do we understand a fetus that didn't make it. Is this a person? Is it not a person? And so those clarifications, I think, will be coming soon. And I think it's going to help everyone to have a better understanding of where medical necessity and just flat out human physiology, that we need to take a much more gentle stance with all of that.
But the official website is very clear that there is no negotiation on that issue.
I think on elective abortions, no. Right. But a lot of them, when you tie a doctor's hands when they're saying this needs to happen, because of what...
Well, that's what it says. It says that even if you assist, then you are going to hell. That's literally what it says.
Well, the thing is to me, it comes down to the people that are passing these harsh regulations. You're practicing medicine without a license, because that's
a good point.
Those kinds of things are between a doctor, a physician, a licensed person who's gone to school for this, and a patient. And nobody is interested in that. And certainly with medical costs the way they are, these are not inexpensive or free procedures. People are going to have to come up with money, and it seems like, preventing a pregnancy either through abstinence or the other stuff that's available at the grocery stores or whatever. I think we need to look at that, and we also need to, and this is going to be unpopular, I'm sure, with a lot of people, but we also need to look at what is the father's role in all of this. Procreation takes two people. And so it is patently unfair for the female to be held to far higher account for how it goes with that fetus than the father. And so I would say maybe this is how we need to begin to address the issue of absentee daddies, people who are fathering multiple children with multiple mamas, and then disappearing. You're gone. You're accepting no responsibility.
That's true. But back to the churches, too, their influence is huge.
Yes.
And if they're going to threaten women with virtual hellfire to have as many kids as possible, then they need to have programs where they can support that, yes. Daycare, food, that kind. They do that here and there,
they do.
To be honest, but it's certainly not sufficient.
Well, it needs to be more focused on full wall-to-wall support for these pregnancies, because we have to face the fact that one of the reasons a woman might seek an abortion, and this was not intended to be part of our conversation this morning, but it seems appropriate. Yeah. Part of the reason a woman might seek an abortion, if there's nothing wrong with the pregnancy, there's nothing wrong with her physically, is because she flat out knows she can't support this child.
Right.
And
if she doesn't have her act together, so to speak, she can't be expected to.
Well, not even, she can have her act totally together, but we have to face the fact that women are paid far less than men are for the same jobs, and all of those societal issues, they play into the fact for how much single parenthood can a single worker absorb. Because children, especially in this day and age, with the cost of everything the way it is, it's expensive. If daddy isn't in the picture, he can't get a job, he won't get a job, he's unfit, for any sort of work, then she's got to bear that whole burden. The cost of child care is crazy. And so we have to look at all of those factors and, with a very gentle, loving spirit, say, okay, let's fix this. It's not enough just to pass regulations and hold a person to account. It isn't enough to do that. We need to provide that full support and advertise it. Because if you are laying down those laws with no kindness, no love toward the people that they affect the most, then I don't think a loving God looks on that favorably.
I wouldn't think so.
I know so many of the stories about Jesus is he would put his arm around the person that was facing, the full wrath of agencies, and he argued for the person, the man who had to go out and find his lamb on the Sabbath, the woman who was about to be stoned to death.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, that's a great example.
And so by taking a loving spirit in the way that Christ taught us to behave, that's how we go forward as a people. That's how we go forward. And it isn't that hard. I mean, when we talk about everybody can start donating clothes to the church clothes closet. Everybody, you make your big pot of soup or whatever it is. You're great at making bread. Make some extra loaves. Donate them to the church pantry. And that becomes the center of your life. And it will work. I have absolutely no doubt. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to have your hand out for some federal funding for that. That comes from the people. And that's where charity begins.
That's right. And instead of donating, in the case of the Catholic Church, donating millions in political races, they should be putting that money toward the need that people have in terms of, single parentage especially.
I think the more separate our churches can become from the political machines, the more confidence we're going to have in our churches, because they will stand up.
That is the basis of the country, really. I mean, one of the huge issues.
It absolutely
separation of church and state, and that doesn't seem to be going in the right direction, especially lately.
Well, I think it is in the sense that when you see the numbers of protests, I mean, this No Kings thing took place in 80 cities. That tells me that democracy is at work. These people are out, they're voicing their opinion, they're demanding restraint and adherence to the Constitution. And so I would say that's democracy at work. As long as they are not prevented from doing that or deported or fired from their positions because they voiced their opinion. And we're seeing a little more of that. And I don't think it matters what the opinion was that was being voiced. We all need to get behind the Constitution's guarantees that we have a right to speak our mind. And if you're on American soil, it doesn't matter who you are or where you came from, as long as you're conducting yourself respectfully and not harming people, you have a right to speak your mind, because that's what our Constitution guarantees. Now, we're either a country of laws, and this is the framework for our laws, or we've become something different. And I think it's time for us to do a little searching inwardly as a collective and say, okay, are we still good with this? And I think most people would say, yeah, it's served us pretty well. We were talking earlier, you and I, Dave, about adding maybe a line to the Constitution. Can you describe what that was?
Well, shifting subject a little bit here, but the news lately has been around the lack of security of the new people in their posts who don't seem to know how to act in a secure way, I guess.
Right. We're talking about our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth.
Yeah, and not just him. I mean,
No.
And we spoke about this in a previous podcast, how it does seem like that there should be some sort of mentoring. If you have the ability as a new administration to appoint your friends or whoever you feel like, there should be some level of qualification. There should be an extra line somewhere in the rules that say that you can appoint who you want as a new president, for instance, but that person has to have some reasonable background that matches what the job requires.
Right.
And if not that, even, there should be a long period of mentoring where the person who held the post previously, that's part of their duty to the country and not their political side, but that for the good of the country overall, that they shadow or they've mentored this person for a good while, maybe 90 days at least or something like that, because they have no clue how to do any of this with zero background. And they just happen to be a political buddy of the new president. That seems crazy. Well, and that's in the system. That's not a Republican or Democrat problem. It's a problem that it is a loophole, as I see it, in the system that allows just anybody kind of off the street, really, to be in a level of very high security implication.
Yeah, no, that's very worrisome. This Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, second offense using this signal chat mechanism to communicate sensitive security data, attack plans against the Houthis. And he's looped in his wife, who seems to be an upstanding person, but she hasn't been cleared. We don't know who she is or who her friends are. We don't know any of that. His brother, apparently he does have a security clearance, and his personal lawyer. Why do those people have to sit in? I've seen Situation Room images where you'll see a snapshot of the dignitaries from both parties, by the way, both parties. And I think before this country gets committed into any other altercations, we need to make sure that both sides are in agreement on that because it's prudent. It basically takes it off the table that, oh, hey, this is a Republican conflict or a Democratic altercation. And it says, no, this is something that the American people agree to, is something that we need to address in a military way. Because it isn't just Republicans or Democrats on, let's say, an aircraft carrier that is a sitting duck. And if information about imminent attack plans is released ahead of time, the likelihood of serious consequences for that is way higher. And I think any reasonable person of any political bent would agree with that. And so this is a second offense. This is like your teenager up in your face. You've said, don't do that to them a dozen times, and they do it again. And you get the sense very clearly and very quickly that this isn't about some commitment to whatever the behavior was. This is an affront to your authority. And so that needs to stop. That needs to stop.
And you had Christy Noem, was it?
She had her purse stolen. She was at a burger joint, had her purse stolen, and there was a Secret Service detail in the room. And apparently the security footage shows that there was a person wearing a mask sitting at the next table and basically using their foot to slide her purse to a snatchable spot, then picked the purse up, tucked it under his coat, and walked out.
Would somebody be able to get away with that with you?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Well, one thing, if they stole my purse, they'd be sorely disappointed because I would not have $3,000 in cash.
Yeah, that seems a little shifty, doesn't it?
Yeah. You know what?
I've come back into the U.S., back home, right? And I've been asked before, how much cash are you carrying? I'm thinking, I have a U.S. passport. I mean, why are you asking me that?
Well, that's it. Well, you can't even.
Was years ago.
Limits on how much money you can withdraw from the bank. If you opened up my purse, you'd find rumpled tissues, probably a candy wrapper or two, a mostly gone little box of Tic Tacs or some other sort of mints.
An unwrapped, hard as diamond circus peanut.
No.
That's your grandmother.
That was my grandmother.
That's everybody's grandmother.
They always had those circus peanuts in there.
Oh, my God.
But Christy's purse was a nicer purse than mine, or probably most of the people who are listening. And she had medication in there. She had her passport in there. And here's the absolute clincher. She had her security badge in there, her Homeland Security badge. Now, they're probably like those hotel keys. They're just going to deactivate that key. And
I don't think so.
Well, you know, that gives her access to highly, highly elite places in the government. And
Well, a
so,
part of security, wouldn't you think, is to be aware?
yeah,
I mean, anybody who's out and about, if you want to maximize your personal security, for instance, then you're going to be very aware of your surroundings. And clearly she wasn't.
no, she wasn't. And if she's carrying that kind of stuff in a bag that isn't attached to her person, I would say you don't mind wearing tactical gear. You don't. You don't mind having your picture taken in the worst place, that CCOT place, the prison. You don't mind that. So you know what you shouldn't mind? You get yourself a fanny pack. And you put all
Yeah,
of that stuff
that's
in the
the way to
fanny
do it.
pack. That way Secret Service only has to take care of you, keep track of you.
And they have these body pack things that are flat you can wear under your clothes and
Absolutely.
that sort of
Absolutely.
thing. That's high security protocol, isn't it? But they're not practicing
Well,
that.
when we travel, I wear a fanny pack. It's not my favorite thing. I don't think of it as a charming accessory for my outfit or anything like that. But it's on my person. I know where it is. I don't inadvertently set it down when I'm manipulating luggage onto conveyor belts or whatever else, or putting my shoes back on or whatever, rigors of travel. And I just think, no, you don't get to have your Gucci bag still. If you've got
There are
a
also
security
little-
badge, then the fanny pack is on you.
There are also little devices that you can clip onto your purse or whatever that go off when there's movement. You can arm
Yeah.
it, leave it there, and if it moves, and you have a way of disarming
Yeah.
it yourself. If it moves, it goes off. I mean,
And you can track
you
it.
can buy these things on anywhere online, really.
Yeah.
Thinking, good heavens.
So,
And then you also have the Secret Service problem with them not being aware either.
all right, what's with them?
Good
What
question.
is with them? Come on. I mean, we had the attack on candidate Trump, and the guy was line of sight, and that neighboring building wasn't secured. I mean, it just seems common sense that there should be a guard up on any roof that has line of sight of that stage. And why wasn't that happening? Now, that was under the Biden administration. Now we have this theft happening in the same room with a high-level Secret Service detail. And it tells me that the job might be too much. It might be too much. And are we training them well enough?
Oh, they aren't appointed either, are they? I think
Do they
it's
come
just a
through
job.
the military?
I don't know. They
I
probably don't
think-
want. They don't have to tell you much, I guess, if you're some sort of secret agent kind of thing. But yeah, that seems really strange for sure.
Especially now for Secretary Noem's own safety. There was someone in that room who meant her harm. They were not.
Oh, he was on her political side, I understand, but that just seems, certainly you would be highly tuned in to somebody like that. I'm assuming it was some kind of a COVID-style mask, I guess, because it wouldn't draw as much attention, but still, anybody, I would think, but certainly somebody in a security position of that level, they would be watching this person.
Well, I COVID aside, I'm thinking if you've got a person who is a lightning rod, let's face it, you are protecting that person, and there's someone over there sitting nearby close enough to be able to manipulate that purse into
a leg's distance away, apparently.
Yeah, and they're wearing a mask. Now, I'm sorry. She should not have been put in that situation. If you can't demand that person unmask, then we don't know who that is. And now it's going to be a lot harder to figure out who that person was, what they wanted. They definitely wanted something in her purse. It's a nice bag. I mean, just on the outside, it's something that would be desirable. Gucci bags are expensive and highly sought after. So maybe it was just for the bag. And I don't know whether she was just in there serendipitously, or whether the Secret Service had gone in a little ahead of time and kind of
Was this a
figured this out.
restaurant or?
Yeah, a burger
Here's another
place.
consideration. I mean, these people at that level, they wouldn't lower themselves to go into any sort of greasy spoon or whatever. So
Well,
a
no,
common pickpocket, they had to be somebody that, would able to have a table at a very fancy place. So that's
This
another
isn't
question.
fancy. It was just a burger joint.
Oh,
and it was over
okay.
the weekend. And she said her family was in town and she had all of that money so she could take them out and about. But for me, I use credit cards. There's some hope you can shut it off.
Unless you don't want to be tracked
See?
about how you spend your money.
Questions. And the idea of the passport being there, I think in her line of work, especially these days, I think she has to be pretty much ready to get on a plane and travel anywhere, because now we're housing these prisoners in foreign jails. And so, maybe that's something she has to be able to do. But the whole thing is very disconcerting because, again, it shows a weak security level for our country, not just for the individual, which is horrible. I mean, I don't agree with how she does things to a high degree. In the comments online to this article about what happened, most of them are very unfavorable. But I will say, I disapprove. This is not okay. And the people that are saying that this is some Robin Hood thing, forget that. I mean, this is a high-level security breach, again, against our government. Now, we have two individuals new to the job and two massive, this is the third when you count
I think there's more than
first.
that,
Yeah. So
and
this is
not
3
just
in
this
100 days.
administration either. I mean,
No.
I think we're not just criticizing Republicans. By the way, if our listeners haven't figured out by now, we're not Democrats, believe it or not.
No.
And we're not Republican. But, there does seem to be a lot of questions. We're just asking questions here, really. We're
Really?
saying, what? Does
No.
this sound
That's
right?
it.
I mean,
that's it. And we need to protect our government workers, our elected officials, our appointed officials. They deserve high-level protection of the absolute utmost security. And I know that all of those people get horrible threats against them all the time. That should not be. That absolutely should not be. She is a person who deserves protection in the job that she's been appointed to do. And the security details, we need to really look at them and see, okay, what's the problem here? Because this is just too many flaws and too many boo-boos in a very short period of time, and it's unacceptable. So that. I think, there's big talk about student loans now. They're going to start collecting on derelict student loans.
well, I don't think they stopped. I think
there was a
sending SWAT
hiatus.
teams out for them.
There was a
under
hiatus.
previous administrations.
During COVID, I think there was some student loan hiatus. And since then, now there's still an awful lot of people that haven't been paying. And it is something that those student loans, if you declare bankruptcy, you're still stuck with that loan. That does not go away. It is not covered under bankruptcy.
That's right.
Protections. Now, I feel kind of bad for a lot of those government employees who've been sent packing, because a lot of them have pretty serious student loan debt. And you have to expect that their parents probably co-signed for a lot of that stuff. So if we're really going to go after collections with a vengeance, they say there's over $1 trillion in student loan debt that's outstanding, and that's
$1 trillion that shouldn't have been charged in the first place. If you want your country to be strong, you make sure that everybody's educated.
And they get, yeah.
So that's the
Well, not only
that's
that,
the problem.
Not only that, but they can garnish your wages. They can garnish your income tax returns.
Think how little sense that makes, right?
These are taxpayers.
You're not able to stay within your budget. Like, and if any of us did any of this sort of stuff, we'd be in jail, right? So, if you're thinking that you're going to garner huge amounts of money from people's education, and you need an educated populace in order to be a strong country, it doesn't make any sense at all.
No. College needs to be paid for. And I think
other countries do it.
They do it. And so the young people coming out of college are not strapped with massive debt. They're able to buy houses. They're able to marry. They're able to raise children. And they can take jobs that are not top tier compensation because they don't carry the burden of that debt. So they can start at the bottom and work their way up and still have a life. And that's an important consideration. I think if you're going after that, and again, there's so many parents who are co-signers who are now senior citizens like us, and the young ones have carried debt for years. And a lot of them have been able to pay the minimums on that, which is why they still have the debt, and, just continue trying to lead the kind of life that baby boomers were able to lead coming out of high school.
From some of the younger generations say things like, I'm just going to pay the minimum and die with the debt. That's terrible.
That isn't even a choice. They'd have no choice with that. Mm-hmm. That's the only way to manage that because the cost of education is so expensive. And
I will say something good at this point about President Trump. And I do like the fact that he is at least saying that he wants to cap consumer credit interest at 10%. And that would be an absolute sea change for so many people in the country.
Oh, yeah.
And I do applaud him for that.
I do too.
And I hope it is a reality because that would make so much difference for so many people.
And I will also say something else I read that I think is very favorable. RFK Jr. has banned red dye in all foods. And one of our kids was allergic to red dye. And we had to go through every package looking to make sure that red dye wasn't in the cereal or the desserts or anything. You'd be surprised. Stuff that doesn't even look red often has red dye in it, and she was highly sensitive to that and would often wind up with hives and, like a sore throat, a swollen throat from it. And we don't need all of that stuff. We don't. The food will taste just great with more natural coloration. It may be less neon, but that's not a bad thing at the end of the day. Certainly in our travels, we've gone to countries where it's been banned for a long time. And the food tastes great, and everybody enjoys it just as much. And so what if it isn't, flame red or some of these other colors, too, that they're talking about getting rid of? I don't think that's a bad thing. I think let's purify the food source, and let's see what the medical data looks like after that, because there's so much indication now that inflammation in our bodies is contributing to stress. It's creating a hostile gut environment, which
inflammation in general is the underlying cause of many, many diseases and disorders, or the result of them. So yeah, it's if you can reduce your inflammatory load in any way, then that's absolutely helpful.
I absolutely agree. And I just think having a look at those kinds of environmental factors, food source factors, anything that we don't have to have, dumping a bunch of coloring in food isn't a preservative. It has no real usage other than eye candy and sales, which drives sales and marketing. And so if you like the taste of a particular brand of candy or cereal or something like that has those artificial dyes in them, you'll get used to the alternatives very quickly. and it will be better for you. You'll probably find that your health improves just because you're not constantly insulting your system with what amounts to a poison.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, I don't know. So that's good. We don't have to agree with everything. We are still, both of us, very firm on our stance that go ahead and get vaccinated. All of these super bugs that we thought we had under control, because of so many agencies coming out and saying that it's the vaccinations that are causing these problems, without enough evidence to be able to say that across the board, and encouraging people not to get those vaccinations. The downstream of that is far, far worse. So, I think sometimes nothing is perfect. Let's put it that way. Nothing is perfect, but in the end, I think the greater good is served by encouraging the population to get those vaccinations.
Oh, definitely, especially the ones that have been tried and true over literal generations of people.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So those are two good things, the getting rid of the artificial dyes, capping credit card interest rates, two very positive
Some of those are
things.
over 30%. I was shocked when I read that. 35%. I think there is something of a cap out there, but it's certainly not, it's, good at whatever it is, maybe 35%. I don't know.
Those are really predatory
insane.
against
It's usurious.
It's against the lower income people, because sometimes you have to accept that.
So if Trump manages that, the Democratic president has not done that. They've let that stand. So, hey,
Well, we didn't get to do much fun stuff today.
No.
I'm glad that we finished
give me
up
one
on
fun, just one little fun thing at the end.
Right now?
Yeah.
I have a little tomato plant that's coming up. It's
Oh.
about 2 inches, and I saved those seeds from a tomato that we had, get this, guys, back in 2011. And I put them in a little jar, and I found the little jar, and I thought, well, I'll just put a bunch of these seeds in some dirt, and I'll see if anything comes up. And yeah, it's about 2 inches. These were tree tomatoes. Where did we get those? Did you order those?
Is that the Cascade ones you're talking about?
I think Cascades.
Yeah, those are great because they really do produce
prolifically. It was so prolific.
Hence the name.
And so that little tomato that's popped up from those unlikely seeds, that's just tremendously
They'll
wonderful.
be hardy.
Yeah.
They should be.
Yeah, and you can bet I'm going to save more of those seeds, but I'm going to plant those and keep that going. Also, sourdough. My son asked me to get him some sourdough for his birthday that was earlier this month, and I started some sourdough.
He doesn't have much of an imagination, I guess.
Oh, hey!
Just kidding.
No, I'll tell you something. That's the gift that keeps on giving, because if you've had sourdough pancakes, or I bake muffins with sourdough.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I started a batch way back in February, and his birthday was earlier this month. And what I do is I paint a dinner plate with the sourdough starter and let that dry. It takes a few days and in a warm place. And then you chip the flakes off of there, put it in a plastic bag, and I marked it happy birthday. And so he's got that, and I'm dying for him to try the sourdough. So because then, that just keeps on going, and you can give that to other people. And if you have a good batch, and this batch has been terrific, I bake almost maybe 4 times a week using that. So that's a good thing. So tomato plant, a good batch of sourdough, which you have enjoyed many times.
I have. I love it, yeah.
So all of those are very, very positive things. And I would say the weather is improving. Spring is here. Keep voicing your opinion. Get outside. That's a big thing. Fresh air, breathe deeply, exhale slowly, because it washes away some of those nervous
Not just
hormones.
on Earth Day, but every day.
Every day. And so I will say, count your blessings, for there are many.